What's up, guys? Today we're talking about the Canon EOS R3. This is actually the first in a new segment I'm going to be doing called Friday Gear Geekout. But real quick, before we get started, go ahead and snap that like button for me. It really does help me out, so I would appreciate it. Go do it. It's like down here somewhere. Okay, so the Canon EOS R3. Canon just released some new information this week, and it's very interesting. I'm very excited about it. Also, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but if you hear a little bit of thumping in the background, sorry about that. People are roofing my house today, so sorry in advance. So the new information about the Canon R3 that is kind of sticking out in my mind is basically, like, we already knew that it was going to be capable of the high-speed shooting, the 30 frames a second continuous. It's supposed to have like updated, more incredible dual pixel autofocus, which is pretty exciting. Now, some things that weren't originally revealed that now have been is that it'll be able to actually shoot oversampled 4K in C-Log 3 10-bit, which that's internal. That's going to be sweet. It's also apparently going to be capable of doing some flavor of internal RAW video. They still haven't released the specs as far as like the sensor resolution or what the video resolutions are going to be available on the camera. But some of those things I have some predictions for. They also haven't released the price, so I'll do some predictions on that later in the video. So hang around so you can hear what I think this thing's going to cost and be capable of. But we'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to start with some things that I'm actually kind of concerned about with this camera that I hope maybe don't end up coming to fruition, but I'm worried that maybe will. So I've long loved Canon cameras, but some things that worry me are obviously the first and foremost thing is, from a video standpoint, is there going to be overheating? And before I get all the real bad comments, I know that this camera body is clearly designed more specifically at the professional photographer, but there's clearly some focus also on video here. And I think in this day and age, there really needs to be. I don't think anybody can get away with just being a photographer or just being a video producer or filmmaker. I think camera companies would be shooting themselves in the foot to design cameras that are simply for one or the other. Everything basically at this point needs to be capable of some level of hybridization. So I am concerned about the potential for overheating. I'm hoping that Canon sort of learned their lesson with the R5 and R6 when they released those and had all that backlash from people being concerned about it being overheating and giving people issues and shit like that. We don't want the overheating, Canon, so let's dump that problem like now. So especially in a pro camera, no overheating. The other over issue is it going to end up being overpriced? They haven't really suggested what the price is going to be. They've kind of suggested where it should land based on where they say it should land in as far as their lineup goes, since it's not actually the flagship for the R line. It is, or at least it should land somewhere in between what the R5 costs and what the 1DX Mark III costs, and especially considering if they are going to release an R1 at some point, it's obviously going to have to be up in that 1DX Mark III price range in order to really compete. So personally, when I see the rumors online that it's going to be priced at $6,000, I'm nervous because I feel like that's just a little too close to the price of the 1DX Mark III, and I feel like that would be overpriced for this camera. I think that for a camera that's already been stated that it lands between the R5 and the 1DX, I feel like a more reasonable price point is necessary for this to work. And again, hang around till the end and I'll tell you what my prediction on the price is. And then the other concern that I have for it is the video specs. There's one of two reasons why Canon wouldn't release what the video specs are on this camera quite yet. And the first reason is the one that worries me, is if they have underwhelming video specs. If it's really underwhelming and seemingly kind of behind the times as far as video specs goes, which Canon is known to kind of do, it could end up kind of killing this camera for a lot of people. Or it's going to be way above and beyond for the camera, or it's just going to be kind of in between. But my concern is it's going to be under-spec'd for video, and I hope that's not the case. It's almost definitely going to be an absolutely killer stills camera, but I hope that it comes out in such a way where it's actually also an absolutely killer video camera as well. So now that some of my worries are out of the way, let's talk about what I'm excited and hopeful for with this camera. The first thing for me is mainly the fact that it is the first legitimate looking pro body mirrorless camera coming from Canon, and I'm a person who's always loved having a battery grip on my cameras. I've been using a battery grip on my Sony a7 III for a long time. I used one on religiously when I was shooting on a Panasonic GH5, and I always had the battery grip on my 5D when I was still using that as well. So I'm a big fan of having that vertical grip on the camera. It adds a little bit more substantial weight to it, and a lot of people are really against having a heavier camera, but it's something I love about those pro cameras is that they are more substantial, they're clearly durable, they've got this additional grip option on there, and for me, the pro grip, the pro body for the camera is really something I'm excited about. I also think that the pro body camera will allow Canon a little more space within the camera body in order to put some sort of passive heat reduction in there and maybe be able to keep it from overheating. So hopefully that's in the works. And the other main thing I'm really excited about is how durable this thing's supposed to be. Canon did mention that this is supposed to be in the same durability class as their 1DX models. So this thing should be able to get run over by a tank and still survive. So that's very exciting to me. And the other things that I want to just quickly mention are the predictions that I have for this camera. So just to clarify, I have no insider knowledge from Canon for any of this stuff. So if I'm right about any of these, it is 100% just luck. But when it comes to the sensor resolution, if I had to guess, I would actually say that this is most likely going to end up being like a 24 megapixel sensor, 24.3, something in that ballpark. The reason I think it's going to be 24 megapixels is two things. So I think it's going to be a higher resolution than the 1DX, so to make it a little bit more appealing, but I also think that the reason it'll land at 24 megapixels is because it's already been stated by Canon that it's going to be capable of shooting RAW video internally. And we know that the R5 can shoot 8K RAW, and I don't think this sensor is going to be a 50 megapixel sensor, so I don't expect to see 8K RAW in the R3. But if it ends up with a 24 megapixel sensor, they should be able to accomplish 6K RAW, which I think would be very appealing to a lot of people. Canon has not yet released a camera that is 6K, and I think that market is there, and I think this would be a really, really great addition to their lineup to have 6K RAW internal on the R3, especially since at that point you could start to take advantage of some of the incredible capabilities of the RF mount lenses. So yeah, the two predictions there are 6K capability RAW for video and a 24 megapixel sensor for stills. So tear me apart in the comments and let me know what you think of that. My other prediction slash wish would of course be the no overheating, and then to clarify what I predict that the price will end up being for the Canon EOS R3, I am predicting slash hoping that it lands actually somewhere around $4,500 to $5,500, somewhere in that ballpark, because for me, I feel like that would actually sort of be the sweet spot for this camera body, because it'll clearly be a nice jump above the R5, but it won't necessarily cannibalize the 1DX Mark III, because I think for a lot of pro shooters, in the event that it gets too close to that $6,000 price point, a lot of guys are just going to keep their EF glass and jump to a 1DX Mark III for the extra $500. And that's just my feelings on that. But I can see it landing right around that $4,500, maybe $4,800 mark. And it'll seriously undercut Sony on the A1 with a lower resolution sensor. But when they release the R1, that would give them room to stay up in that $6,500 to $6,800 range for that flagship model. So those are my predictions. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down below so I can do some more of these guys. Check this video out up here for more helpful creator tips, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.